we are live.
Okay, we're live?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second town hall. We are excited to have you all here. We want to thank you for your patience this week. Our tech team, the instructors, the mentors, they have been working around the clock trying to help as many participants get situated with Okta and Moodle and Slack before putting any coursework out. So for today's town hall, we have Shay from the Zuri team, as well as our first guest, Kane Okoye, who I'll introduce in a moment. Just a reminder, remember to post your questions on YouTube chat, and we will be answering those during the second half of the town hall. So this is the first week where we're going to begin coursework beyond the Intro to Reskill course that's currently on Moodle. And we're excited to get you started on that. So I'm going to hand it over to Shay, who can better explain what everyone can expect.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today. I'm going to share my screen now to show you what we have for you for this week. So far, what you've gotten is Introduction to Reskill Americans. The purpose of that course is to manage your expectation for the program, to explain to you the full content of what you should expect for the program. And this week, we are going into Introduction to Technology, which you should have access to the course now, but if you don't have access yet, don't worry about it, as I'm sure the tech team will work on it and you should get access very soon. I'm going to share my screen now. Can someone confirm? Can you see my screen, please?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Okay, I think I'm sharing the wrong screen because I can't see my own screen. Just give me a minute, please. That's it. Okay. So share screen and okay. All right, so I'm going to view, my view might be a little bit different from yours, but you should be able to see the course I'm about to show you now from today, if you check your dashboard. So Introduction to Technology course, the purpose of the course is to walk you into technology and introduce you to the concept of technology. We don't want to just dive into programming and start teaching you how to code or how to design. We want to start by introducing you to the concept of technology and where the origin comes from, and help you to understand the things that you need to know before you can start coding at all. One of the reasons why we decided to do this for this cohort was the feedback we got last year was many people that joined the program as beginners found it difficult to cope with the program when we started the actual programming and the design aspect of the program. So we have decided to do this introduction course to give an overview and to help you get started before we actually go deep into it. So over the next couple of days, you're going to be getting several courses that will introduce you to technology, introduce you to the concept of programming, and help you to get started. I keep having trouble with my screen, so I'm trying to fix that now. Sorry about that. Okay. I think this is it finally. Right, so the course you'll be getting this week, this is the outline. It's a little bit long, so we are giving you the entire week to digest the course. You start from this particular one that talks about general knowledge of computers in the perspective of Windows users. We also understand that it's possible that you don't use a Windows computer, you use a Mac OS. So we have those two options available. Even though you are not expected to complete the entire thing, we highly encourage that you go through the entire course content and don't skip any of them. because even though you don't use a Windows system or that you don't use a Mac system, these are concepts that you still need to learn about technology generally. So the recommendation is that you go through every part of this course. This course is also going to help you to set up your system for either front-end development, for back-end development, and for UI UX. Now, please note that it doesn't matter the track you intend to choose in the program. You are required, I mean, I'm using the word required, but we expect that you go through the entire course content here. This is to give you a general overview of what a front-end developer does, a back-end developer, and the tools they use, and then who a UI UX designer is and what they do at their job. Now, we also have a basic computer skill course here that would show you things like copy and paste. I'm sure many people already know all these things, but even if you already know them, we ask that you still go through the course to remind yourself some of those things you might have forgotten. At the end of the course, we have two things here. We have a self-improvement tool, which is just a course that contains 3 items. It's going to explain to you one way you can track your progress as a tech person. So this course will show you how to do that. And then finally, we have a quiz. The quiz has about 30 questions, but you get just 1 attempt. The point of the quiz is not to grade anybody. It is to help you yourself to understand your interest. So after going through the entire course, we would like you to take the quiz, and then based on the result of your quiz, you can decide on what you should focus on for the program. Because one of the issues we had last year was many people joined probably coding track or design track, and then midway through the program discovered that this is not for them and decided to change their mind. Unfortunately, for this course, that will not be possible, which is why we encourage that you go through every piece of content. Don't say that, oh, I'm not interested in front end or I'm not interested in back end. We ask that you go through everything so that you can make an informed decision when the time comes to select a course. So also in the coming weeks, we are going to be releasing some more courses. One of them is going to be Introduction to Programming, which is going to be telling you about the history of programming and what you'll be doing as a programmer. When that time comes also, we ask that everybody take part in that course. It's not a very complex course. It's a very simple thing. You just go through it to understand who a programmer is and what a programmer does. There's also going to be Introduction to Design, which we ask that everybody goes through the course also. As we have already mentioned, this first 4 weeks is going to be dedicated to introductions, just introducing you to every concept that we believe you need to learn and the things you'll be doing during the program, so that when the time comes to select a particular course or a track, you would have known enough about each of those tracks to select them. One last thing I wanted to mention before I hand it over back to the next speaker is we have several ways in which you can reach us. If you took the first course, which is Introduction to Reskill Americans, you will have seen different methods in which you can reach either the tutor or me or any of the coordinators. And I'd just like to go over it again. So we have what we call office hours, which is a lot of different time allocated for you so that you can meet with any of the tutors. And then we have one-on-ones, which is we can book an appointment with any of the tutor and have a conversation with them one-on-one. So those are the 2 main ways you can reach them. The tutors have been saying nobody's attending the office hours, nobody's asking me questions. I'm sure when you go through this course, you might start having some questions. You might need help setting up your tools. You might need help installing some things. Please maximize the office hours and book an appointment with them. And I'm sure they'll be willing and happy to help you. I think that's all I have to share. I'll be available till the end to answer questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Shay. All right. Now I would like to introduce you to our first town hall guest, Kene Okoye. He is originally from Huntsville, Alabama. He began writing code in middle school, despite none of his family members being programmers. And he is currently a software engineer at Google. So hi, Kene, nice to meet you.
Hello, thank you for that, Lorraine. And thanks for the description of the coursework, see.
So Kane, could you tell us a little bit about your background, like why and how you got started into software development, how this led you to your job at Google?
Yeah, so I got started in my software development career sometime around 7 years ago. I had been programming since middle school. I had one of these handheld devices, a PlayStation Portable, and I wanted to figure out ways to have custom games and custom applications to be installed on that game. And once I did a little bit of research as to finding out, what does it take to get your own games made and get your own apps made for this device, and what's that process look like? And people suggested, learn C programming, and you will be able to have something deployed on that device. I didn't get to the point of being able to make a piece of code for that or deploy any app on the PlayStation Portable, but I kept practicing. There were a few small programs that I made for Windows, like a calculator. And then in high school, started doing some more programming there, made some basic computer games, and then started editing websites. And then I looked up some internship opportunities for people who wanted to get into for any company that was providing or needed help with their web UI interfaces that they were creating for any of their products, and then became an intern for Avocent, which was a part of Emerson Network Power at the time, and then was working with various JavaScript engines such as Laravel, and then later on things that were built off of Node.js, but did a lot of PHP at the time. That internship had lasted for a little over 4 years. But then during the third year, I went over to the Bay Area, drove over there from Huntsville, Alabama. And at that time, there's this one person that I went over there with, and we thought, applying to Google from our background and applying to these other companies like Uber, it would probably be not the best use of time, because I don't come from the backgrounds that a lot of the employees over there come from. Like, you have to have, a lot of those people have went to very large universities, or universities that have a very big focus on programming, such as UC Berkeley, UCLA, Stanford, Cornell, Carnegie Mellon. And so I thought, somebody said they will put in a referral for me after I had went in and talked to numerous people who were, casually around the Bay Area. And then later on, like a week later, I got an email from Google saying, hey, we're impressed by your background. Why don't you go through these interview loops? And I was really happy about that. And thankfully, I got into the interview process, and the result that I got was a very refreshing no from the interviewers. I had done some interview practice at that point, but it was nowhere near the level that was necessary to get into a company like that. Heard the same thing from Uber 2 weeks later after doing their on-site, and then just continued practicing, went back to Huntsville, stayed there for around 9 months, and then got some opportunities, got some more interview opportunities to come out and interview in Seattle. And so got brought here by Amazon, and then Expedia here in Seattle, and then Twitter here in downtown Seattle. And then got an offer from Twitter at the end of 2018, the beginning of 2019, and started there. And then I switched over to Google a little over a year ago last year. And pretty much they saw that I had been working for a while in a programming industry, and then they saw that I had the skills to be able to contribute to their code base by, once I approved it with the 4 rounds of programming interviews, and then the 1 round of cultural people interview.
Wow, that's quite the journey there. Would you be willing to share a little bit about the interview process? Because I've heard many stories of sometimes some people just get in, then I hear it's like months-long process, multiple interviews, different types of interviews. So are you willing to shed a little light on that whole process?
Oh, sure, yes. Sometimes there will be people who reach out to you over LinkedIn, and then sometimes you will apply through their website, and if somebody that works there puts your name in, then that will get your name closer to the top in terms of recognition to get started with that process. Then you will be on the call with a recruiter to talk about a little bit of your background and the languages you enjoy coding in, the ones you've been coding in most recently, what your current or previous roles were, and then they will schedule you for a phone screen, and then for that process, you'll have your laptop, and then somebody will call you over the phone, and then they will spend about 3 minutes talking about your background and their background, and then they will jump into a coding problem where most of it is like a style of some algorithmic problem that you can find on leetcode.com, where they ask you some question like, okay, given this clock number, like within this string of 9:42, convert that to some more fully written out word in English with AM or PM next to it. So you need to be able to code a full solution like that within that 45-minute time slot, preferably they want you to finish that within about 20 minutes, because there's a chance you may get a second question asked within that session, and you should finish that as well. And then if the results from that are pretty good, better than like a borderline result case, then they will send you to the on-site process, where there's 4 questions or 4 sessions that are like that, usually back to back. And then 1 session where they talk about your, what would you do in some situation or some scenario where you may need to plan for a team event and things like that. And you just walk your way through that as if you are the team's manager. So yeah, that process involves a pretty decent amount of practice. So generally, each little question that they ask you should be you would talk through your thought process and what the possible solutions are for these questions. Talk through why the other solutions are not efficient and bad, for solving this algorithmic problem. So like if your loops happen to go over the data too many times, then you can talk about why that is not preferable, and then talk about the preferred solution. Then you will code the preferred solution within 10 minutes or less. And then you talk while you're coding that. And then once you're done, you will break down, you'll go over each line and then describe what each line is doing. You'll also have some example input, and then be able to describe how that input is getting transformed and how you're stepping through your program with this input and how it's providing the desired behavior. And then if that's good, then you will be, and if the roles aren't too limited and other people aren't competing for your position, then you'll usually get some news, some people reviewing your information and then saying, yes, we'd love to have you join. But first you need to do some team matching. There's a couple of teams who may want to, the managers will talk to you and then tell you about the languages that they do and work with on a day-to-day basis and how they build out those services. And then if you and them agree that you would love to join and there's no random hiring freeze that happens, then you are now given an offer letter that you can sign, and you can determine the date that you'd like to start at.
That's quite the process. From beginning to end, how long do you think that whole interview process takes, for you, at least for your experience?
So do you mean all the way from like preparation for yourself, or like the moment that you talk to the recruiter and then go from the recruiter to like the offer?
I'm going to say from the moment that you spoke to someone and got the whole ball rolling to get the interview and the process of the interviewing.
Yeah, that process can, some of those cycles are as short as 2.5 weeks. Like I think my process with Twitter was probably less than 2 weeks. Like from the call to the phone screen was the next day. The on-sites happened a week later. Although I think the offer came out, or there were more talks that happened a week and a half later, and that was also over the holiday season. With Google, that took around a month, I would say.
All right. So now you're in Google. Can you tell us what a typical day is for you?
Yeah, good question. There happened to be a couple of really funny day in the life videos on YouTube that people have recorded usually for comedic purposes, and they've gotten a lot of views. But a day in the life for me at Google is whenever I get to work. Sometimes that's right here. Sometimes that's in the office, which is not too far from me. And it could be in any office in the world, actually. But our team is based a couple of streets down from here. We go in, or I go in, I check my emails, I check my chat messages to see if there are any communications with me, any requests of me, any questions about some services that our team has been working on that I have knowledge about. And then I respond to those. And then I open up my notes that I've taken on what it is that I need to do, because I will have some coding tasks that some of them are complex and some tasks are generally doable. I break all of those down into subtasks, and then I either break down new tasks that I've gotten, or I pick up wherever I've left off with some of those subtasks. And then I will start my coding or testing of the new lines that I've edited for the services that I'm writing. Or in certain cases, the design documents that I have been creating to describe a service that, or a tool that that I plan to be making. Then there are usually some meetings that I have on some days of the week. And then those meetings, usually we are either sharing knowledge about how do we go about making our services more robust, and then what code is involved when we are going to be trying to accomplish those things. And usually there's about 2 influential meetings on 3 days of the week. So like usually for us, those are Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and also Thursdays, because we also have these review sessions where we're reviewing our some of the operations that we've taken since we run a service within Google Cloud that monitors and facilitates the rolling out of our new some of our services and extra software. So yeah, once those meetings are finished, I go back to like I review the notes that I've taken during some of those meetings if they pertain to things that I'm working on or things that I think people should take action on. And then I'm back to either communicating with questions that people may have or questions I may have with other people, and then coding and implementation. And then it's usually 4:30, 5 o'clock, or 5:30 before I know it.
All right. So let's say one of our participants, fast forward in the future, we get all the skills we need. What skills are needed for a role like yours as a software engineer at Google? So what languages, what function expertise?
Yes, good question. Good question. A lot of these companies are language agnostic. So the language may not matter quite as much as long as you've demonstrated the ability to create a service or some type of program in any language. But what Google really works with a lot is when we work on our services, we work in Go, we work in Python, JavaScript, and some C++, especially within cloud here. Since Google is so large, there's a number of different products that Google creates, like Geo, which is what they call anything that relates to Google Maps, and things like Android Auto and things that are related to navigation like that. Search, ads, cloud, Chrome, Chromecast for hardware, the Pixel, Then there's also Waymo, which is part of Alphabet, Chronicle, which does security. It's a cybersecurity area within Alphabet. So yeah, you have like a wide range of different products that Google works on, from self-driving cars like Waymo to cloud services. So like for those are the languages that we tend to work in specifically, but in general, what they look for like during the coding interview process is for somebody to implement a maze solver using breadth first search or depth first search. And those can be done using pretty much any language, but most popularly and the most convenient language for a lot of people seems to be Python for completing these interviews.
All right, thank you. Can you give an example of maybe a project or something you've worked on with your team that maybe was a challenge and how you helped solve it or how your team solved it?
Yeah, so right now we are working on this this dashboard that is showing some of our metrics for how long it takes for people to create experiments that will be rolled out across our entire fleet within Google Cloud. And an experiment is a new feature that our virtual machines can run within. There are these new features that we will be able to run because you can customize your VM to have almost any type of hardware, any size of hardware. And currently we don't have a view that can tell us how efficiently these experiments are being rolled out into production. And so getting that data is also involving a lot of complex queries and a lot of SQL knowledge. So right now I'm working with a handful of teammates to figure out first why some of this SQL isn't working the way that I expect it to be working. And they sometimes express that same idea as well, that they ask that same question. But we also want to figure out, we're trying to find out the different sources of data that we need to marry together in order to get this particular piece of data or this particular information, like how long it takes for our experiments to be launched. Because this information, this data is kind of scattered between a number of different tables that our team has. So that's been one of our more recent adventures and our more recent challenges.
All right, thank you with that. So as you know, our participants are all wanting to learn either UX design or coding, software development. So we all are very interested in going into the tech industry. So tell us, what is the best thing about working in tech?
Yeah, the best thing about working in tech is it's either the flexibility or the ability to solve problems or solve some challenges using code, and then being able to see the fruits of your puzzling and the fruits of your organization when crafting this code. Once you see this tool that people are using, or this visualization or this UI, and then other people are also using it, and they just keep on telling you the the ease and the amount of time that they've saved and how great the things that they've been able to do are with the tools and the things that you've created. That is probably my favorite thing about that. The thing about working in the industry is the flexibility of where you can do it and who you can work with. So here, I believe the official policy is that what used to be the official policy is that you would come in 2 days a week. It was like a mixed hybrid remote work policy. So you would come in on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. But since then, it's kind of been this idea of, if anything comes up and you happen to be more productive at home for that day or however long it needs to be, then just, be productive there at home or be productive wherever you're traveling to. So we do like to, I do enjoy seeing the people within the office, the teammates and the other stakeholders and collaborators that we work with. But you also have that option of, being able to take this work wherever you need to go to and be, as long as you're responding and you're able to still collaborate, you can do that wherever it needs to be.
All right, I love that. So finally, what advice would you give our participants who are obviously looking to break into the tech industry?
Yes. Oh, sorry, what was that first part of that question?
Oh, just what advice would you give our participants? We're just starting off the program now, we're in the beginning of it. We have 7 months to get learning. So, what advice would you give to them? Because everybody obviously wants to try to break into the tech industry here.
Yeah, I would say that, there's never a better time to start. Like starting now is the absolute best. And so, get your hands dirty. There are a lot of resources that exist now, and we hope to make those resources more palatable, and also just we want to either make those resources that exist or create new resources, so that way the ramp up time, the amount of time it takes to learn these new skills is like as fast as possible. So if there's any idea that you have, don't be afraid to, scratch a little bit of it out and get to coding some of that. And then don't be afraid to ask some questions to people. If somebody ever says no to it, the only person that they're hurting is themselves for not being a witness or being a user of something that you create. So definitely get out there and start.
All right, Kane, thank you so much. I do have some questions from our participants. How long, let's see, this one says, have you had to learn a new language since working for Google? And in a little addition to this one, also, how much time do you spend Googling answers to debug your code?
Oh yes, this one is very this is a very nice question right here. This is pretty good. Yeah, so I would say for a new language since joining Google, I hadn't used Go much before I joined. So I had read a little bit of Go code before joining, but I hadn't done any coding in it. So at that point I was pretty unfamiliar, didn't remember too much about the language. So when I joined, there were a couple of services and tools that that I was working on, and that is something that I learned. My manager during that team fit call had said, "Oh, you know, these are the languages that we work in. So if you're, since you seem very interested in working on within the GCE fleet here, pick up some Go resources and get into that." So I did that a bit before joining. So the ramp up time was not as slow as it would have been if I didn't learn Golang, which is what Go is long for. And then how much time do I spend using our product to debug the code? So yeah, for this SQL project and for a couple of there was also a front-end template for Go. There's this front-end templating language that looks a little bit like React, but or maybe it looks more like Angular, but it's a very limited version, and it's called Go template. And I did a probably 1 hour worth of Googling, or maybe 2 hours worth of Googling on that front end bit that I was editing, and like the total time working on that front end and back end total was probably a couple of weeks. It was actually it was 2 months, and then I'd say the amount of time spent Googling for that front end template, and then some other Go errors that I encountered would probably have been, I think that would probably be probably 3 days worth of that. Because some of it would be, sometimes debugging is like an inch by inch progression that you make, where you write some code, then your IDE, your development environment, will highlight what's wrong with it, and then you can notice it'll point it out, and then you can go fix it or get to the point where some of those errors don't show up anymore. And then for the ones that do show up, you look that up, you try to find out what the problem might be from searching for it online, asking some other people around you, and then those errors are gone. But then some new errors show up once you compile the code and you run it. Then there may be new errors that you said, oh, you know, I didn't know that I needed to use, I needed to call this method this way instead of treating it like it was just a variable or a function. And some of it can be resolved with intuition. Sometimes it's sharing your code with another teammate, and then sometimes it's through looking some things up. So yeah, that's probably the amount of time. It's probably a total of 2 days out of the 2 months that I had worked on the project. Did I spend Googling answers to debug the code so far?
All right. Have you ever worked with designers?
I have, well, since a lot of my roles have been back-end oriented, I don't meet much with product designers and UX designers. So those are very limited, although I would not mind getting into a project or making a product that involves some UX designers. When I had went to the Bay Area, I had created this this app that was similar to it was a ride sharing app, and then I had worked with one designer to get a UI made for a certain page within that app, and then used that design to model some of the other pages within that app.
All right. Does Google, so someone's asking, does Google have a travel requirement? I feel like you answered this already. And also, what's your work model? Do you do remote, hybrid, or in person?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I do, so for the travel requirement, for this role, it seems like there are very few reasons to travel, especially at this time, even though we're opening up. If we have some team members or extended teams that we work with that are based in another office or another site, then we will travel to that location. But so far for Google, we haven't done that yet. We have site reliability engineers, which are quite similar to software engineers, but they are more their role is more centered around keeping the lights on, so to say, keeping services up and running, keeping things reliable. So maybe replacing bad running commands that will replace bad machines with good machines. Those are in, we have some of those members in Europe and a couple of other countries or regions around the world, but we have not had a proposal to go visit those people yet. At Twitter, some of our team members were in London in the UK, so we did travel once to London, and then they came here a number of times. Our work is, it's a lot, most people have come into the office in person. Our manager actually, his youngest daughter had just turned, I believe 18 months old, so like a year and a half old, and was just now eligible in August for the COVID-19 or the the vaccine for that. So at that point, he started coming into the office. So that was almost half a year since the hybrid work model. So most people come into the office a couple of days a week. A lot of people come in every day, and a few people have come in probably like once every 3 months.
All right, so it seems pretty flexible. What would you say some of the cons, or are there any cons for working in tech?
The cons or the downsides, one of them is that the solutions that you might be thinking of, or the work that you may have to do, it doesn't really leave your mind. Like some people will leave the office, whether it's right here or they'll close their laptop for the day, and then they'll still be thinking about some problem or some algorithm or some code that they haven't been able to solve yet. And that has for some of them, that permeates into other sectors of their life. And that has happened to me a number of times, where I'll just be, I'll make some progress, but I don't quite get to where I want to be. Like like theoretically, I'm at a good place where like I usually make a decent amount of progress every day, but in my head, I believe that I have some loose ends, and I'm thinking, I would be constantly thinking about, okay, I got these error messages, or I got this output that was not what I wanted. What are these lines of code that I could change in order to get what's necessary? And then what are more items that I need to add to my design documents? So sometimes once you close your laptop or you leave your workstation, you get the sense that you're not done.
Right. So it's like your workday is done, but mentally it's still going. So yeah, that could be exhausting. So what's your
Right.
favorite language and least favorite language?
Yeah, it's a great one. I would say that my favorite language, okay, I haven't ranked these in a while, so kind of sifting through the languages that I've used. My favorite at this particular moment would probably be it'd probably be Python in terms of writability, and because it flows really smoothly. Maybe if I work more in Go, I could say that might be one of my favorites. And then my least favorite happens to be C++ at this particular moment, simply because of how verbose it is and how many operations you need to write in order to have a effective and clean program. Apparently there are libraries and modifications that exist that make C++ much more a much more flowing language. And so in terms of efficiency, C++ runs very well in terms of CPU performance. But yeah, those are, at this moment, it's my least favorite. Or sorry, C would be my least favorite because that's even more verbose than C++.
All right, thank you. What software development books do you recommend?
I believe there is, for software development, in terms of actually building the software, I may not have any at the moment. O'Reilly is a very good resource for books on software development. There are some books on getting and understanding the coding interview and understanding what metrics people want you to perform at for coding interviews. But in terms of actually writing the software, I think I have this book that was provided by, I think Microsoft might have made this book on software development. I think the title might be something related to clean code, crafting clean code. But off the top of my head, I just can't quite, I can't recall any book titles that I've gotten for, that I can recommend for software engineering and software development, mainly because I would either take some courses online or I would watch some video series, multiple video series online, and get a lot of the information that way.
All right, so we're coming close to the end of our town hall. One more question, which I think is a really important one. Did you ever, or do you ever get imposter syndrome? And if you do, what steps do you take to help you overcome that?
So imposter syndrome is this feeling that engineers or people in some industry experience when they are in a environment and they feel as if they may not belong there. Like everybody else is qualified, but I am not. It happens. It used to happen every now and then, mainly because there will be some people who have their master's degree. There's some people who have PhDs in. Sometimes they're in different fields that don't relate to software engineering. Sometimes they're the exact major and the exact study and thesis that these people have been dedicated themselves to. They have been based on software engineering and things that pertain to computer hardware and memory management and distributed systems, which is the scaling of large services that a lot of these tech companies operate. It can be challenging working with such people and then realizing that your background is not quite the same as them or as their background, but you completed the interview process and the requirements for you to be there are not, it's not that you have to be, you don't have to have the exact same background as these very high performing individuals or, people with very impressive backgrounds in computer science and engineering. So usually I will focus on my work, focus on, having some conversations with the teammates about anything related to engineering or software development, maybe some conversations that are related to other miscellaneous topics. But it's, as long as you're there contributing and sometimes even giving new ideas about writing some of the services that you're writing, then there's no reason for you to not be there. There's no reason that you shouldn't belong.
Well, Kane, thank you so much for telling us your story, giving us advice, and answering all these questions. We appreciate it. Town hall participants, thank you for joining our town hall. We will have this recorded and we'll post it later in case anybody missed it. So I want to thank everybody for coming out. Kane, again, thank you, Shay, and everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.